What's up, guys? Clint Coons here, and in this video we're going to talk about a creative use for a series limited liability company when it comes to protecting real estate. Okay, let's get started. So here's what happened. We were contacted by an individual who had a piece of property in Texas. So we had this piece of property right here. It was one piece of property. Let's say this is 5 acres. They own a 5-acre parcel of land, and on that land there were 6 homes just like this, right? 6 properties. Now, the challenge for anyone in this scenario is that you have this property that has one legal description. So you got one legal, and it owns 6 properties because it's probably maybe when it was zoned you can only have 5-acre parcels, but they're able to put 6 homes on it. Who knows how this all came about? But there's 6 properties there. Now, possibly you could go through the permitting or the subdivision process here to subdivide all this out, but that can be expensive. And so when this individual contacted Anderson to talk about asset protection, he'd already been through several local attorneys, and they told him this. When you have a property that has multiple properties on it, and each of these, of course, has its own address, that's at B, A, B, C, whatever it is, you can't do anything other than just set up one limited liability company. So they said, hey, just do this. Set up an LLC down here, right? Set up your LLC, and then put the property into the LLC. Well, that makes sense if you have one property, put it in there. But you know from watching my other videos, one of the concerns that we would have is that in this scenario, you have one piece of property with 6 houses. So you have 6 potential tenants that could file a lawsuit against you. And if they did, then all 6 properties are at risk because they're all held by that one LLC. Now, of course, you're protected. You might think, well, that's great. At least I won't be sued, but you could lose all 6 properties. So when we looked at the situation, we realized that is not the ideal way to go. What we have to do is set it up so that you have protection for each of these 6 properties. Now, what was advantageous here for this investor is they happen to live in Texas. And Texas allows us to create a special form of limited liability company. And as so does about 18 other states allow this type of LLC. And it's referred to as a series. I have many videos on the series LLC. You can watch those videos if you're not familiar with it. But a series limited liability company, to make it simple, it's one LLC that you set up here. So you set up your parent LLC. And then for all your investments, you're going to create these separate cells like this. And they're created off of the parent operating agreement. They're typically a 4-page small agreement which has the name of the cell, who's the manager, who's the owner of the cell. And then in Texas, you have to get a DBA. You register for a DBA with the Secretary of State. And the benefit of having the series structure with these cells is you're creating one parent company, and these are really quick to put them together. I had one client not too long ago that needed 15 cells. I put them together in about an hour and sent them out to them via DocuSign. They signed them and they were ready to go. So you come up with a name for these cells, you get them set up, and they offer you asset protection. So whatever you put into cell 1, if anything goes wrong with that, then that asset is going to be protected from the other properties, or the other properties will be protected from it. Now, so this is where we're coming at with this type of structure. It'd been to the attorneys, no solution, put it all into one, didn't like that, called us up, and I started talking to my partner about it, and here's the solution we came up with. When you have a series LLC or you have a situation like this, what you can do is you can deed this property into all of these cells as tenants in common. So if you watch my tiny houses STR video, short-term rental videos, I talked about this strategy. So what you're doing is you're going to deed this one piece of property to all 6 cells. So on title now, rather than your name being listed as the owner of the property, you're going to have 6 cells that are listed as owning 1/6 of this property. Okay, so they'll all be listed as tenants in common. Now, ordinarily in that scenario, if we had it all broken up like this, how do we account for these houses? So if anything goes wrong with this property, they don't sue all 6 cells and say, you're all the owners, we want to hold you all liable. Well, here's where that separate address helps out this client. So when we deed this property into these 6 cells as tenants in common, we're going to designate on the deed say for this cell right here, that this cell owns this house. Now, how do you do that if you only have one legal description? You do it by the property address. So in the bottom of your deed, you put a notation down here that this cell, tenant in common, this property, owns this particular house right here. So we transferred house 1 there, house 2 here, house 3 here, house 4 here, house 5 here, house 6 here, and we broke them all up on one parcel, 6 different addresses held in 6 different cells. So this is how, when you're dealing with real estate, how certain entities can provide you solutions to problems that no one else sees because they're not thinking past the traditional structuring that most of them have been ingrained to implement for real estate investors. Now, from a tax standpoint, hey, we haven't changed anything. All these cells are going to be owned by the parent, just like that. And everything will be set up here. All the rents can be collected here. This will keep separate books, just like I talk about in my other videos. You're going to run it as you normally would, and then it'll all flow down to you from this one cell here. So possibly you'll have one federal tax return here, or maybe 0 federal tax returns because you choose to make it all disregarded. So when you're thinking about your properties and setting up your asset protection structure, I want you to understand this. Where some people may tell you there are no options, there could be options for you to put together a plan like I just showed you to make sure that you're protecting yourself. You want to find out more, what you should do is set yourself or register yourself for a free strategy session with someone in my firm to analyze your situation. Check out the show notes there. We have a strategy session link there. You click on it, it's going to bring you to a page. You can pick out a time, put in some information, and we can get you set up so we can go through that and hopefully protect you the same way we're able to assist this client with their real estate investments. All right, guys, again, if you liked the video, you know what to do, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Take care.